In the news tonight, Israeli bulldozers demolish a Palestinian house and buildings in a dawn operation in Jerusalem, with officials claiming the buildings were constructed illegally without the correct permits. The U.S. House of Representatives is set to vote on an economic deal approved by the Senate late yesterday to avoid the fiscal cliff and steer the country clear of recession. And the world welcomes 2013 with fireworks and hopes for better economies and more peaceful days ahead. Good evening and Happy New Year. As the world welcomed the new year, Palestinians woke up to their aspirations being crushed once again. Bulldozers, backed by Israeli police, demolished a Palestinian house and buildings in a dawn operation in Jerusalem. Officials from Jerusalem's municipality claim the buildings were constructed illegally without the correct permits. But residents say they neither received warnings nor notices to evacuate. And in the village of Beit Omar near Hebron, Jewish settlers set ablaze a Palestinian car and daubed the now infamous price tag graffiti over the walls of nearby property. Palestinian settler tension spilled into violence near the city of Nablus after a crop of newly planted olive trees was destroyed. Israeli soldiers used tear gas against a group of Palestinians who were throwing stones at settlers. And in Syria, people woke up to countrywide aerial bombardment while government forces and rebels clashed on the outskirts of the capital. An opposition activist said rebel fighters attacked one checkpoint in the district of Birzeh early today. Opposition groups said mortar bombs hit the southwest suburb of Daraya, where the army launched a military offensive yesterday to retake the district. They said government air force pounded Damascus's eastern suburbs, as well as rebel-held areas in the second city of Aleppo and several rural towns and villages. A resident of the central city of Hims said shells landed on the old city also early today. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported 160 people killed on the final day of 2012, including at least 37 government troops. Iran has warned off foreign surveillance planes that have tried to approach its forces during naval drills in the Strait of Hormuz. An army commander said about 30 warnings were given to reconnaissance and surveillance planes to keep out of its airspace and away from the site of the exercises. Iran's 6 days of drills are taking place in an area in the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean to showcase its military capabilities. They include testing 2 missiles, a coast-to-sea missile and a long-range surface-to-surface missile. Iran has threatened to block the strait if it comes under military attack over its disputed nuclear program, while the United States has said it would not tolerate any obstruction of commercial traffic through the strait. The House of Representatives is set to convene at the Capitol later in the day to vote on a deal approved by the Senate to avoid the fiscal cliff. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, who forged the deal with the Senate Republican leader late last night, should be meeting with House Democrats around this time to sell them on the package. If approved, the deal could help the U.S. steer clear out of recession. Although enough austerity would remain in place, it would hike taxes permanently for household incomes over $450,000 US, but keep existing lower rates in force for others. The last-minute approval of the deal scales back $600 billion US in tax hikes and government spending cuts. Here's more.
U.S. senators rang in the new year on Tuesday morning by passing key bipartisan tax hikes and spending cuts.
The yeas are 89, the nays are 8. 60-vote threshold having been achieved, the bill as amended is passed.
The move helped the U.S. back away from a fiscal cliff that could have seen the onset of another recession for the world's biggest economy. Senators like Republican Mitch McConnell were pleased that Democrats and Republicans came together over the bill.
As I said, this shouldn't be the model for how we do things around here, but I think we can say we've done some good for the country.
But the legislation, which increases taxes for the rich and keeps middle-class income tax low, will likely face major challenges when presented to the House of Representatives later on Tuesday, since it does little to rein in America's debt worth $16.4 trillion.
I am concerned about this constant drift, bit by bit, deal by deal, toward more deficits, less job creation, more unfairness, less economic justice.
All eyes are now on the House, which is to hold a session on New Year's Day. If it fails to pass the legislation, markets could turn sour again when they open on Wednesday.
In a New Year's message to the world, Pope Benedict said he hoped 2013 would be a year of peace. The Pope held a mass for about 10,000 people in St. Peter's Basilica today, which the church marks as World Day of Peace, with initiatives around the world. He called for a new economic model for markets, saying the global financial crisis was proof that capitalism does not protect society's weakest members. He also warned that food insecurity is a threat to peace in some parts of the world and thanked the world's peacemakers for working behind the scenes tirelessly and thanklessly. Also today, thousands of people took part in a peace march to the Vatican, led by the Catholic Peace and Charity Group. The world bid farewell to 2012 and greeted 2013, with most people hoping for better economies and a more peaceful year. From Auckland, New Zealand, the first to ring the new year, to the rest of the world, cities competed to display their best array of fireworks. This report looks at some of the highlights across the world.
Auckland in New Zealand was the first major city in the world to kick off the New Year's celebrations. As 2013 made its way across Asia, Shanghai joined in with the party atmosphere. In Myanmar, thousands turned out for the first public outdoor festivities since a ban on such gatherings under the former military-ruled nation was lifted. North Korea lit the touch paper on a firework display in Pyongyang, then added to the occasion with the first New Year's speech by its leader in 19 years. London rang in 2013 to the chimes of Big Ben, completing what the city's mayor described as an amazing end to an incredible year following the Olympics and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. In Berlin, more than 1 million crowded around the landmark Brandenburg Gate to see in 2013 in style and launch a wealth of New Year's resolutions.
To work harder and play harder.
Well, I just want to be a nicer person for everyone.
Dubai used the world's tallest tower, the 828-metre Burj Khalifa, as the stage for its fireworks show. In South Africa, revellers in Cape Town celebrated what some hoped would be a more peaceful year to come.
Well, I hope that it's a wonderful year full of joy, full of love.
Throngs of people as traditional celebration. Copacabana Beach in Rio was the big venue for Brazil's Hello to 2013, drawing an estimated crowd of 2 million for the start of what's likely to be a bumpy year for economies around the globe.
But in Abidjan, the Ivory Coast, a New Year's Eve celebration turned tragic when about 60 people were crushed in a stampede outside a stadium. A crowd had gathered to watch fireworks at the stadium when security forces arrived to disperse them up, triggering a panic. Many people fell over and were trampled. An Interior Ministry official said the provisional death toll stood at 60 and there were about 50 others injured. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara, while visiting injured people at the hospital, called the incident a national tragedy. With just 2 weeks before the start of the Australian Open, Maria Sharapova withdrew from the Brisbane International due to inflammation around her collarbone. The world number 2 was forced to withdraw from her second round match against Australia's Jarmila Gajdozova, but she said she is not overly concerned about her preparations for the season's first Grand Slam set to start on the 14th. Brazilian Lucas Moura is ready to make his debut for Paris Saint-Germain in their mid-season friendly against Qatar-based club Le Joya. Lucas has just moved from Sao Paulo in a €42 million deal and has signed a 4.5-year contract which runs until 2017. PSG are in Qatar for their mid-season training camp and will be participating in a friendly tournament against several local sides. Lucas signed off his farewell in a charity match held in Brazil with Brazil legend Zico last Friday, netting his last goal in front of his home supporters before flying out to France the next day. And finally, a quick look at the weather forecast. Cold tonight with partly cloudy skies and southwesterly light winds. A slight drop in temperature is expected tomorrow with a maximum of 12 degrees Celsius in Amman. Skies will be partly cloudy, creating a chance for some light showers in the northern and central regions. In the Gulf of Aqaba, fair weather prevails tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, his reminder of the day's top stories. Israeli bulldozers demolish a Palestinian house and buildings in a dawn operation in Jerusalem, with officials claiming the buildings were constructed illegally without the correct permits. The U.S. House of Representatives is set to vote on an economic deal approved by the Senate late yesterday to avoid the fiscal cliff and steer the country clear of recession. And the world welcomes 2013 with fireworks and hopes for better economies and more peaceful days ahead. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thanks for watching and have a good night.